Welcome everyone to another episode of Trends Talk. I'm Sarah Sladek, your host. And you know how it goes. There are sometimes technical difficulties behind the scenes. Well, we were just experiencing that. But hey, we are here. We are making it happen. I have a great guest for you today. I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. But I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you in the audience who have been following Trends Talk. We've been doing this now. This is our 15th month in a row. So, and if you are new to Trends Talk, I hope you will continue to tune in. These are just 30-minute talks where we do a quick interview on a really important subject with a prominent thought leader. And it's been so much fun talking about all the trends. And man, we are living in a time of fast change. And I am excited to introduce Lisa Bodell, who is the CEO of FutureThink. And she knows all about change. I wrote about her in my book, Talent Generation. I've been a close follower of her work at FutureThink ever since. And she is one of the top ranked speakers in the world. I mean, you are in for a treat. So Lisa, please join me on the stage. Woo, so glad you're here.
Greetings. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm a fan of your podcast, so thanks.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive in. So here's how this works. We're going to go through a round of 5 questions. Dear audience, if you have a question, we are streaming on both a platform and on LinkedIn. But if you have a question, put it in the chat or whatever feature shows up on your platform, and we will get to those questions shortly. But for now, round 1, let's do it. All right, my first question, Lisa, what current stat or data point best summarizes the need for organizations to prioritize planning for the future?
It's going to be one that they don't expect, and it's going to be from Gallup's workforce study last year. And it talked about how 8 out of 10 people are burned out. And the reason I quote that is it's really easy to talk about stats and productivity and all these other, management, leadership change. We know those, but what we're not realizing is the toll that the pace of change is taking on people, the excessive velocity and volatility of the change is taking on people. And the result is they're not just tuning out, they're burning out. That's why we see presenteeism, right? That's why we see disengagement at the highest levels we've ever seen. So when people are planning for the future, I think it's not just about giving them the tools, it's also giving them the support. And meaning, whether that's a well-being support, whether that's about teaching them how to better deal with change, because that's going to be a constant. I think that we are missing that component from our planning. And that would be a good thing to focus on.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, burnout is huge. It's real. It's so magnified right now. It kind of brings to mind. My daughter is learning how to drive right now.
We were recently. Lucky you.
Oh yeah.
How are you doing with your stress right now, Sarah?
I'm not. So we were recently on the interstate and she made the comment, like, I don't feel like humans are supposed to do this, like go 70 miles an hour. It seems like not a human thing we're supposed to do.
Well, we were laughing about soon, so don't worry about it.
And it's like, that's just driving, like just thinking about all the tech change, all the political change, all the, just change has been a constant. And people, it's a lot. It's like, I don't think humans are supposed to move this fast or do this much, right?
I'm doing a lot of work now on, with my simplicity platform around, it's not just about, people think of simplicity in terms of being more productive and efficient and all that, but we have lots of tools to be productive and efficient. And I bet you're efficient, Sarah. I'm efficient, but it's not about being organized, right? It's about doing less. So you can better manage. It's not just managing change, it's managing chaos. And those are different. Because chaos is, let me say it a different way. Change is something where a boss used to be able to come in and say, I'm making a change. Here's the plan. If we do X, Y, and Z, we will get to the end. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. And now what happens is it's almost like black swans are common. Who knew this would happen? Who knew this would happen? So this constant upheaval makes it very hard for people to deal with change because there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. They don't know why there's the change, which makes it harder to rationalize and want to be engaged in it. And it's very mentally taxing. So it's hard. It's hard for you to engage in things that you're not clear about. I'll work very hard for something that I am into and I'm on board with, but so much of this is chaotic, it's hard to get on board with it. And I think if we can manage to help people calm the chaos, that's what I mean about the planning and the burnout. That's going to be a big help for leaders.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go to Q2.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Here and now, we're seeing some organizations move backward. What the heck? Instead of forward. We're kind of craving those good old days. We're wanting to go back in time. What do companies gain by doing this? What do they risk? Is it possible to innovate in a traditional work environment?
So if you're saying going backwards is return to office, is that part of that?
Yes.
Okay. So because I would argue, as somebody who's a futurist, I think it's important to know history, but history informs you in certain things to make better judgments about the future. I don't think you can go back, once the genie's out of the bottle. So return to office is important for some roles and sometimes, but it has to have a purpose. Everything has to have a fit for purpose. So I think there are definitely things as somebody who works in a creative environment where being together is much more effective. It is for me, right? In my experience, but not all the time. You also need time for focused work. Yeah. And so I think that, again, it's a balance. It's not an extreme, and people tend to go extremes. That's when I think you go backwards when you go extreme. So what do organizations gain by going backwards? I think it's okay to reflect and go back to things that worked. I think what they lose so for example, going back to some return of office, is when they go extreme. Because again, they want to be on board with change, not have it forced onto them. And that's what people are resisting, is they're not given a choice or they're not given a why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we're seeing some of this too in what's happening in our government right now. Mm-hmm. And political leaders. And, there's been articles about, gosh, there's such a move to try to go back to very hierarchical, very male, very powerful types of leadership styles. And so that too, we're seeing, I think there's going to be backlash and pushback from
you already see it. Wow. I mean, you already see that. So to me, that is backwards. So let me give you an example a lot of people talk about with me, which is Doge. And because I deal a lot in simplicity, but I also deal a lot in service of what, right? I'm not just helping people be more productive or organized. That's not going to solve the problem. I'm helping people get more space for the more meaningful things to happen. Doge, on the surface, I think is a good idea, meaning finding government efficiency. I have always proposed that we need within companies as well as the government a chief simplification officer, someone whose job is dedicated to constantly weeding out the fat. That's their job, so they have to do it, right? They can't be thwarted. Right. And that on the surface is what Doge could do. But the problem with Doge is that it's not doing that, and it's in service of what? It's okay to get rid of the fat. But not if then the result of that is you can't do the service that you're set out, what your mission is. So this is where I get back to the why and the how. The what is fine. Getting rid of things, great. But why it's happening and how it's happening is creating chaos. That's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And just curious, how, in your opinion, do you get back from the brink of chaos into something more healthy?
I think again, you're starting with the why. Why are we doing this? And then we can better focus on the what and the how. I think we're doing things backwards. Yeah. There is no why, or I should say it differently. There's a why, but I'm not sure it's constructive. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what you do instead, right? I think sometimes, let me say a few things. I think sometimes extremes can help. Now, I know I just said something different about going to the office. However, for people that are just absolutely against change, the only way to shake them up is to force it. And they can either get on board or they can leave. Look at JP Morgan, right? Jamie Dimon has made it very clear that he wants everybody back at the office. Whether you agree with that or not is one thing, but everyone's free to leave, right? Yeah. Everyone's free to go. And so if you're not on board with it, you shouldn't stay there. And I actually agree with that. That's fine. It's actually an attrition strategy, right? It's not just a go back to work strategy. Now, within the government, that's something different. I think we have to be clear on the why and the outcome we're looking for. That's first. Then we can get the people on board, and then it can move with purpose and move faster. That's what I think has to happen.
Yes. Okay. Very thought-provoking, deep stuff. It's good. It's good. All right, let's go to Q3.
Let's do it.
Okay. You are an advocate for simplification. You just mentioned that. Yet, as we're talking about, the world's becoming increasingly complex, crazy, chaotic, all the things. So where to start towards this move of simplification? What are 3 tips you provide? And maybe you want to explain to people why simplification works, what your research shows as well.
So the thing about simplification, why I'm such a fan of it, is because I have always been incredibly organized, but that doesn't mean I'm simplified. Like the analogy I always give is like Marie Kondo with the closet organization, is that, right? She didn't organize everything in your closet, but she organized the things that brought you joy and got rid of the things that didn't. So the trick wasn't organization, it was simplification. And that's a difference, right? So being organized isn't being simplified. The issue right now in the world and at work is that it's not that it's just gotten more complex. It's that it's gotten complicated. And those are different. So the thing about making something complicated is it makes it hard to function, versus complexity can be necessary if it requires safety and expertise. So what we found is that necessary complexity is, I want my pilot to go to flight school.
Yes.
I would like my surgeon to be board certified. I don't want anybody just being like, I'll do brain surgery, right? I want my banks to have security protocols in place so I don't lose my money to hackers. That is necessary friction and complexity. But what isn't the unnecessary complexity is what I'm talking about. That's the stuff when you ask people, what do they hate about work? What is a time suck? It's the things that get in their way of what they were hired to do in the first place. It's the work of work. It's meetings, it's email. It's not regulated stuff. It's not complex things. It's complicated things. So I think that's a shift in terms of mindset of what you focus on. And the good news for a leader listening here is that stuff is a heck of a lot easier to get rid of because you have control over it. Right? I don't have control over medical boards, and I shouldn't. So that's a good thing. But I do have control over meetings and things like that. And so I think we can take more control of our time than we realize. So there's lots of things you can do. I think you can audit your meetings and kill zombie meetings. I think you can do, you can put things on a time diet and try it. You can kill stupid rules. You can ask your team, what are the biggest time sucks that drive you crazy, and get rid of them, or pilot getting rid of them. I could go on, but those are simple things listeners can do or suggest to their boss, and they would get back. If you could just get back an hour or 2 a week, wouldn't that be a great start? It'd be tremendous.
It would be amazing.
Yeah.
Are you really mastering this in your personal life? I'm curious because
often, but not always.
Yeah. What inspired you to do this research on simplification?
Well, it's funny. I talk about this now, and I have a new talk that I give about unleashing the power of simplicity. And frankly, it's from my childhood. I grew up in a very, very chaotic home. And I had a father that was very volatile and erratic and chronically unemployed. And I had a mother that was very disengaged. And so my brother and I were left on our own. And from a very early age, I was by around 7, running errands and cooking meals and taking care of things.
Wow.
Because I wanted to get control. That's what this is about. It's not power control, which is one of the things we're having an issue with government right now. It's control to have calm so I can do things that are important. And I got very good at that. I'm very, very good I would be great in an emergency room. If you've got a dumpster fire, I'm your person. I can make you feel great and I can calm it down. But it also makes you take on too much, and it makes you think that you can spreadsheet your way out of things. And I found that I couldn't. I was getting very depressed. And so I started doing research, and that's how it got me to simplicity.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I'm sure it was a natural progression from your book, Kill the Company, too, because you started to look at what, all the rules and traditions and the wasted time,
So
right?
much. Well, it was that. And I mean, I'd like to say that it was a planned journey, but it 100% was not. It was strategic luck. That's all I can say. I found that when we were going in to teach companies how to shake things up, because I also like to provoke and shake things up, that gets back to the sometimes people need a little bit of an explosion to realize what isn't working.
Right.
But what I found with people is, yeah, they wanted to shake it up, but they didn't have time. They were burned out. They were exhausted. Like when you go to a brainstorm, Sarah, and everyone comes up with great ideas and then nothing happens with them.
Yeah. Right.
So simplification has to happen before any innovation can happen.
Yes. And I recall you mentioning at one of our conversations that we had, you said people will say they want change, but when you really peel it back, they don't really want change, or not a whole lot of it, just a little tiny bit, and
But that's driven, I mean, do you find that? Are you good with
oh
change
yeah.
or?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yes. No, that's so true. People will say we want to be over there, but we don't want to take the steps to get there because that would be painful and difficult.
So it's the number one thing that creates complexity, in my opinion, from my experience, from my research, is fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
So I'm the same thing. Like when somebody gives me a good proposition, it's too good to be true. I don't believe it. I'm skeptical, right?
Yeah.
Or, okay, we've got to make a big change. What do I have to do to get there?
Right.
And I think that's okay. It's kind of like, I don't know, going to the gym, right? I'm okay with the pain and the input as long as I know I'm going to get the output. But people aren't seeing the light at the end of the tunnel to want to put that effort in. So that's what's making change become more and more enticing to people, because they don't believe it's going to get them anywhere better.
Yeah, and then you add in burnout, and people are tired.
People are tired. I mean, I have to say the two things people have, they're tired and they have ADD. Everyone has ADD right now. It's not even a diagnosis. It's just we assume everyone has it. It's how much, right? So,
Right.
And that has to do with technology and devices and all the things, but it also has to do with the constant change. And another thing I'm sure you talk a lot about on your show is AI. I mean, we are just getting started. I mean, we have no idea what's about to happen. It's going to be massive, and it can be, as we like to say, borrowing from Google, it's either going to be cool or creepy. It's probably going to be both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yes.
buckle up. There's going to be more change. So dealing with it, going back to your original question, is going to be key for managers to help people get through. It's like business therapy, basically.
Right. Agreed. All right, let's go to Q4.
Great.
Okay, Q4. You help companies identify their not to do's, get in the way of the things that really do count. I love that. So, what are some of the most common not to do's you see popping up, and what really does count, especially here and now?
What a great question. I'll tell you, here's the number one that pops in my mind, which is people's inability to say no. And do you find this too? Do you say yes too much?
I never have this issue, but yes, and yes.
Wow, you're the first human I've ever met that way. That's amazing. I do a lot of stuff. My stuff is very simple and practical. That's me. That's the Midwesterner in me, where I grew up. And the most popular tools we have, there's two: Kill a Stupid Rule and 40 Ways to Say No, which is basically a tip sheet. And I just put that together on a weekend, on a plane ride home, because so many people were saying, I can't take back my time. And I said, well, tell me what you say yes to, and I'll tell you who you are, which is an interesting way to think about it. And because what you say yes to defines what you spend your time on and what you give priority. Most people say yes with the best of intentions, or out of obligation, or in fear. But very few of us think about why we give away our time, because it's a non-renewable resource. You will never get it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. If you could learn how to say no comfortably, I think you would be much happier. And so that's why 40 Ways to Say No was such a huge hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what are a couple of those ways?
Well, I'll tell you that, I mean, some of them are, there's the deflection. I can't right now, but I'm happy to refer you to someone that can.
That's
That's
good
the throw the bus, but you're being helpful, right? You're still being helpful. I'd love to, if I only had a clone, I can't right now, but I'd be able to do it later. Let's discuss this in the future. So they're saying no, but they're doing it in a way that makes them feel like they're still a good person.
Yeah.
The other thing is when it being more definitive, which is my calendar just won't allow me to right now. Most people, when I say this, and I'm guessing, Sarah, but people that are listening right now are probably going, there's no way I could say any of those things. So if you can't say no, say yes if.
And I like that.
Yeah, I do too, because this is where it's, stealing time is a crime. And if you take someone's time, are you prepared to really do a trade-off? And what I mean by that is if I say, let's do it a different way. Sarah, if you say to me, hey, I need you to write this book for me by tomorrow, and you're my boss, I'd say, sure, I can do that if you do everything else that's on my plate for me, or you reassign all these things and then I can solely focus on it. Because it's not fair for you to just add if you don't also subtract or give trade-offs. That's really a bonus phrase I would throw in.
And she's back.
I'm back. Sorry. Tell me where I left. Sorry about that, people.
Because it's not fair.
It's not fair if people try to take their time without a trade-off. And I think that people need to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
So try
Agreed. I love that. How to say no, how to simplify. I mean, these are like life lessons, not just
so.
Lisa, we'll let Sarah come back on. We'll just wait a minute here.
You got it.
Thank you, everybody, for standing by for a minute.
Yeah. Actually, everybody listening, it's fun. There's a lot of good stuff we're talking about, and I hope it's helpful for everybody. I hope there's some good things. Good tips, good tricks. And for everybody listening, I should say this. Trying yes if works not just at work, but it works in your personal life. And I would encourage people to do that. Hey. That's okay. We're working on getting everybody back. So anyway, these tips are good for personal and professional, which is great.
Yes, there we go. Okay. We are having technical difficulties. Bear with us.
It's good.
It is the world that we live in, right? Sometimes it streams well, sometimes it doesn't. Let's go to our last question. Try to get it in to the queue before we end here. All right. What trends are you currently watching and advising others to prepare for, Ms. Futurist? Very important question for you.
I'm going to tell you one around AI, but a little different spin, because if you don't mention something about AI, I mean, you're not a futurist, but there's a whole bunch about it in terms of embodiment AI. I mean, we could really go into the future of robotics. I mean, there's a lot that's going to happen in terms of that.
Yeah.
But agentic AI is really where people need to think about, not just where we are right now with generative AI. That said, I think about it from the impact and the psychology of it. So already it is wildly helpful to take mundane tasks off of my desk. I can write so much faster because I can put a creative idea into AI and it can help me shape my thinking. But what it can't do, it is not human yet. It does not have enough context. It doesn't have tone. It doesn't have cultural, situational variety. It doesn't have original thought. You can tell when something's been written in AI. You can. It's almost too perfect and too stilted. So I think one of the things that we should get prepared for in a good way is a burst of human creativity, because we are going to have more space and more time for thinking, because AI, if done well, for good, not evil, will take a lot off of our plate. And what will happen with humans at first is they will feel very uncomfortable because they will have a lot more time on their hands. And then they're going to really start to figure out who they are, what they want to do, and what creative ideas they can put out into the world. That is life-changing.
Absolutely. That is actually super inspiring. This is my same view of the future. I'm looking forward to people opening up their human minds for that creativity and that innovation, because I do think so much is stuck in the doldrums and the day-to-day and the dull and the boring and the
Yeah, we weren't put on this earth to answer emails. So I think that there's so many problems in the world that are completely within our control and solvable.
Yeah.
Completely, if we just were able to dedicate our time to it and get out of the bureaucracy that we get stuck in. So that to me is a really hopeful message for people. And I do believe that's going to happen. There'll be bad things that happen with it, just like everything. I mean, remember, people didn't want cars or electricity. So, there's no going back.
Right. We're not putting the genie back in the bottle, as you said.
We're not, but that's why we just have to make sure that we embrace the why in a positive way. And I think that everyone listening will do that, which is good.
I think so too. So I want to thank you, Lisa, for being here. Any closing comments before we adjourn? I see that we've had some comments that people have really enjoyed this. They're saying it's super helpful. Which
Good. I will tell you what I would encourage everybody listening to is that, as I said, time is your most valuable asset. You should not give it away. And if you could learn how to not spend your time, but invest it, that's a very different way of thinking. I think that you will be happier, you will be more engaged, and you'll feel much more in control with the chaos.
Yeah. Mic drop. And, also there are 40 ways to say no.
Sure.
So come up with one. I love that, Lisa. Thank you so much for being here today on Trends Talk. And I hope for our audience, you tune in next month. We always do these the last Thursday of the month. And I look forward to seeing you at the next one. And I see someone posted very good advice relevant to business and personal life.
Great.
Absolutely. Lisa, it was an honor having you on the show today.
Okay.
And we'll see you all at the next Trends Talk. Bye.